Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining with us. And today I welcome you at our NANO-DOAP webinar series. I am Subrata Sarkar. I am the coordinator of NANO-DOAP project. And we have Dr. Lillian Krug with us. She is the scientific coordinator of POGO. So those who are not aware of NANO is the NF-POGO alumni network for the ocean. So the scholars who received training from the POGO are the members of NANO, and our mentors are also the member of NANO. The objective of NANO is to maximize the benefits and extending opportunities beyond the NF-POGO training. So to maximize the benefits, we have networking activities and we have joint research projects. So this NANO-DOAP is also one joint research projects of NANO. And then we have also outreach and capacity building activities. So now I will give you a brief introduction about NANO-DOAP. So NANO-DOAP is a global study of deoxygenation, ocean acid. So these sites are from different countries of Africa, Latin America, and Asia. So the objective of this NANO-DOAP project is to support in situ and promote satellite remote sensing observation of essential oceanographic variables at the selected sites. So these essential oceanographic variables include temperature, salinity, pH, dissolved oxygen, and chlorophyll. So some sampling sites also measure some other oceanographic variables. And we also conduct interstation comparison of this data, and we organize capacity building activities, and we have also outreach and citizen science based activities. So currently we have around 36 sampling sites from 18 countries. And this webinar is also part of the capacity building activities of this project. So in this webinar, we invite speakers to share their recent research works on oceanography or ocean-related fields to share with us, so that our project participants can enhance their knowledge or develop their capacity in ocean-related activities. So this webinar is open to all, and we circulate about this NANO-DOAP webinar series on the social website, so anyone can join in this webinar series. Today, we have Dr. Nimit Kumar as our speaker. So thank you, Nimit, for accepting our invitation. And Dr. Nimit is from INCOIS, India, and he will talk about your first dive into the UN OceanDecade 2021 to 30. So Dr. Nimit Kumar is a marine scientist and proud alumni of NF-POGO. He serves as a scientist at the Indian National Center for Ocean Information System, which is INCOIS, since 2011. He has contributed to the Marine Fishery Advisory Service program and now involved in international interface and capacity development endeavors of INCOIS. He graduated with microbiology as major and has another post-graduation in disaster mitigation. His core strength comprise of ocean observations, telemetry, remote sensing, and GIS. He is also alumni of PORSEC, BOBLEM, and IOC Westpac's MOMC. He is also one of the founder of Early Career Scientist Network of the Second International Indian Ocean Expedition. He has participated multiple research cruises in the North Atlantic Ocean and North Indian Ocean on board Indian and foreign vessels. His professional interests include conservation, sustainable development, blue economy, outreach, and capacity building. He serves as Executive Secretary and Chair of PORSEC since 2017 and a PORSEC Distinguished Service Awardee. So before I pass over to Nimit, I just want to let you know that this webinar has two segments. In first segments, we'll have 30 minutes presentation from our speaker, and then we will have a question and answer session. So if you have any question, you can raise your hand or you can just write in the inbox so that our speaker can answer your question. And one more information, this meeting is being recorded and we will upload this webinar in our NANO-POGO YouTube channel. So if anyone do not want to be recorded, please switch off your camera. Once again, thank you, Nimit. Now over to you.
Thank you, Lilian and Shubrata and the fellow, NF-POGO alumni. And this is actually a nice place to be and, connect with everyone. And this is a very good opportunity. And we thought that, like under this project, we often host the topics related to the, NANO-DOAP project. But then now we can also diversify into some newer topics. And that is the reason that today's topic is there about, OceanDecade. So I will try to give you like a kind of a brief overview of what OceanDecade is. And I hope that you would find yourself into, like knowing a little bit more about OceanDecade than you do right now. So with that short, prelude, I just turn off my camera. I'm not gone anywhere. Just I turned off my camera and I start sharing the screen so that we justify the bandwidth as well as we all focus on the content. So please just confirm once that it is visible properly.
Yes.
And then I will, thank you very much. Perfect. So I'll just begin with that. So this particular, the slide, it is more like an introductory slide, but then we want to begin with very beginning. So let me just go there. Yeah, I think the slides are changing, right?
Yes.
Perfect. So I'm confirming this is the first slide. Perfect. So the UN decade, it did not just appear, suddenly from somewhere or just arise from, say, one meeting and then like people are sitting at the high places. They suddenly decided that, okay, let's call the decade of 2021 to 2030. There had been like a very good scientific basis, climate being the like one of the core at that, like those concerns and the roles that oceans play and like for the climate we have been all trying, and most of the discussions are rotating around the fossil fuels and then carbon cycle in general, but human beings being like land creature, not all of them would be aware about the importance of the ocean in the planet's carbon cycle. So like they might be knowing that, okay, if you are a fisherman or a coastal community, you will know the importance of the ocean for the resources. Other people might be knowing that it is good for like, a lot of oil and exploration is happening. So probably oceans are good for that. But when it comes to the, carbon uptake, like other than the ocean researcher community, it will be like hardly as a layman, they would be knowing that, the oceans also uptake at least half of the carbon, that is like almost equal to all the trees that put together from land. Ocean also contribute to that, even though there are no actually like, trees, just with the help of like through the what we call like the phytoplankton ecosystem, it happens that. So this is just like one aspect. And other thing is about the pollution, for example, whatever, when we say out of sight, out of mind. So pollution, plastic, the cows eating, for example, that, or, like birds or the wildlife that is getting chalked on the plastic, that is all like it will get kind of like media visibility and also kind of a picture in people's mind. But what is happening to the ocean ecosystem through the marine litter and then especially plastic, that even though like there are a lot of approaches and there are a lot of efforts there already, but that will be still like on the kind of back burner of common people, like, you know, in their mind. So these were the reasons that if we try to transform, like, you know, this kind of perception in whole generation, it will take time, and it will not just be able to, like, you know, done in within weeks or months, but it will take years to bring that change, that people will start perceiving that, okay, even though, like, you know, you can't all go to the middle of the ocean, but you can understand what is happening there. The policymakers would be sensitized, and they would be also, you know, motivated to take these like kind of decisions for the greater good. So with that background, like a UN General Assembly, they the word in UN lingo, it is more like proclaimed that, or they declared that the decade of 2021 to 2030, it would be like identified as the UN decade of ocean science. And at the core, or at the bottom line of this whole exercise is that no business as usual. So whatever that is already happening, even in the field of ocean science, that automatically will not be say that okay, we will highlight same activity and we will just call it like, you know, ocean decade activity, not like that. So there will be like, you know, new structures, framework that I will talk about, that are being put in place, and the kind of practice, community of practice to be generated, which would have the benefits or the you know, after effects even when the ocean decade ends. So the efforts are for the like it is called like a decade of ocean science, but the idea is that after 2030 we should not go back to like where we were in the year 2020. There should be like a whole paradigm shift that should happen. So this is the like a background of that, and with that background, as early as you know, end of 2017 itself. So this is like we are talking about pre-COVID era, where like the disruptions due to the pandemic, that was not actually anywhere on the horizon also, but still they understood that the kind of time it will take just for the preparation. So you want to run something at this global scale, and you know, not only in the coastal area but in the hinterland, then you need like preparations of at least 3 years. So fortunately, the pandemic-led restrictions were started only majorly in the beginning of 2020. So they had like at least 2 years to prepare for that. And I don't say that the pandemic did not affect. It did affect up to a certain extent, but the impact was limited. Imagine if they have just started, say that, okay, we are going to observe this decade from 2021 onwards. Let's plan the activities or the preparations or the meetings and, you know, the brainstorming, everything 2020 onwards. It would have been kind of like too much ambitious task to, what should I say, achieve. So this is the, like, as early as end of 2017, they started this, and the tagline for this, that the ocean we need for the future we want, because ultimately our future, like for the future generations and our own well-being also, it depends on the oceans itself. So this is the kind of like the core idea that the ocean decade aims to penetrate into each and every mind, you know, across the planet. So that is the like kind of preparative work. And then what they have been doing, you can see here that there were like a lot of high-level meetings, and ultimately, you know, like the creation of a portal dedicated for the ocean decade, that is called Global Stakeholder Forum. That was also prepared as early as, you know, in the mid of 2019 or early 2019 itself. And then there were regional and like, you know, intergovernmental consultations and all. So preparatory phase itself was like had a lot of activities, and official beginning of the decade, it actually started in the like beginning of 2021 as it was already planned. So this is the like kind of I'll not read each and every step of this, but I just wanted to give you the idea that, okay, like, at what scale the preparations were there. And that is the outcome of that, what we are discussing right now. So they actually envisage that OceanDecade would, like it will have a lot of components, and it will not be like just another gathering for the government executives, but it will have the partnership of the industry, partnership of the like non-governmental organizations, funding agencies, artists, even common people, everyone, like what everybody can actually do to raise this awareness and then kind of sensitize, like those who were not earlier sensitized enough about the OceanDecade. So again, I'm not going to read each of these, but these bubbles, you can see that these are the like some components that is highlighted, and you can see other dots. So I mean, it's just like kind of it's not exhaustive kind of component that this part of the society only can be part of the OceanDecade. The idea is to bring the kind of stewardship that OceanDecade is owned by each and every one of us, and then each and every one of us has like a stake to the ocean, and thus to the OceanDecade, and we can all do something about the like OceanDecade, and we do have a good long 10-year period of time in which we will have time to recalibrate, we will have time to include the communities or the segments of the society which are not like fairly represented in the middle of the this like decade. Also it's kind of continuous course correction kind of thing that you always try to assess. And I will also talk about like the review process that is there. It is very elaborative. So the idea was that since we don't mean to by any means to keep this as a business as usual, so let us bring in like the kind of never before type of the reviewing mechanism, and then the push that we need to make for each and every stakeholder. So this is the like way that OceanDecade clockwork it actually is in place, and it's kind of self-evolving system. So stakeholders like us, when we point out to some of the lacunas or say that, okay, can we do it this way? So to have it like better say awareness or better impact, then those measures can be imbibed. So this is the kind of like a way to kind of self-regulatory and evolutionary kind of framework that has been decided to say in say I would say to run the OceanDecade, you can say. So let us, when we talk about the running the OceanDecade, let's see that who is actually doing this. So as you can see that UN is the like kind of overarching umbrella, but UN also has different institutions in place, and UNESCO is one of that framework. UNESCO also, it has a lot of activities, but under which one of the office that is already in place, that is called IOC. So that is called Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission. And IOC takes care of the all ocean related activities even before the OceanDecade was planned or before it was put in place. So IOC has been given the responsibility. Having said that, IOC did not want to continue again as a business as usual. So they created something called Decade Coordination Unit that will be like a secretariat that will be within the IOC, and IOC will also, and they have already created something called Decade Advisory Board, and that has people from expertise from all the different fields that you can think about, and what are their roles. That also I will talk to you in coming slides. But continuing with this slide, so DCU was the something new at IOC that was brought up, and Decade Advisory Board, it's like a set of people who would take on the calls of like what should be done. It's kind of like advisory committee, and they all will work with the different UN entities. So we will talk about that also, like how it aligns with the different other UN goals and other already existing programs. So the idea is to not to do the business as usual, but also the idea is that not to actually exclude or let out the existing what should I say assets or the frameworks that are in place, but to bring them together to create kind of bridges or the networks which was not earlier. So the institutions and the frameworks which are existing, we need to make use of them to create a kind of synergistic say ecosystem of OceanDecade. We can say OceanDecade ecosystem that would then do the things which were not earlier possible, because that kind of harmony was not existing. Now, like DCU has been like something new that was created at IOC. There are like, that is only one part, but it is somewhere just in Paris, that is like one office, right? But you want to do the decentralization, and that is what it is written here, decentralized coordination structure. So under that, you have to bring in fold like the existing institutes and all, but also in a way that they will do newer things. So first of all, that is the decade coordination offices. So that actually is the UN offices which are already there. So for example, we can say IOD, International Oceanographic Data Exchange. Yeah, that was already one of the UN that IOC office that was existing. Now that also will actually participate in this, but with the dedicated staff, dedicated activities, dedicated programs. So those are the existing offices of the government, and especially to the UN. Those are called DCOs, Decade Coordination Offices, because those UN offices were already existing. And DCC is something that Decade Collaborative Centers. This is something totally created from the scratch. So I will give one relevant example. I'm as introduced, I am from INCOIS, Indian National Center for Ocean Information Services. Now at INCOIS, we put the proposal for one Decade Collaborative Center, DCC, and that we called DC for the Indian Ocean region. So INCOIS, we do the activities which will benefit primarily to the Indian stakeholder, and we do train researchers from the neighboring countries and from the Indian Ocean Rim countries. We do collaborate with POGO also, like we did in last November, to chalk out some training programs and so on. But it is not only about the isolated these activities. So there has to be like a new office or new center that need to be created. And that is what it is called, DCC for IOR, that we actually put a proposal for. And a couple of months back, we got the primary endorsement. So now our ministry and IOC, they will undergo to some MOU with which then the what should I say, the inaugural or the kickoff meeting, it would happen. At the same time, so this is the geographical DCC. So DCCs could be of two types. Either it is about the geographic. So for the Indian Ocean region, for example, the DCC IOR that I mentioned about, there are DCCs that actually focus on the West Africa or the Mediterranean and so on. So regional DCCs will have like a geographical focus, that in that region, all the activities, whether it is related to the pollution or whether it is related to the sustainable fisheries or whether it is related to the hazard mitigation, all themes would be like addressed in coordination with them. And there are other types of DCCs, which is called thematic DCC. So for example, I think in January, it was in January, there was a DCC kickoff meeting was there, and the DCC name is Ocean Predict. So that is the thematic DCC. It does not limit to any geography, but it is limiting to the that predictive capabilities or the forecasting, capabilities wherever any forecasting related efforts are being done. So for example, for the Indian Ocean, they will collaborate with the DCC IOR. For the Pacific region, they will say collaborate with the IOC Westpac and so on. So thematic DCCs are one type of DCC. Geographical or regional DCCs are another type of DCCs. So this is the how two major types of DCCs have evolved so far. Third type of DCC is the international regional organization networks. I don't have to elaborate about that because it is more like self-explanatory, right? So these are the organizations or the networks which are already in place. Like for example, POGO is one network, IIOE2 Early Career Network is another network. So those existing all the frameworks, it would also collaborate. And something again you are seeing at the bottom that is new, that is called National Decade Committees. So now each countries are each of these countries all over the globe, they are encouraged to create National Decade Committees, or it is called National Decade Coordination Committee. So now, for example, India also has NDC. Now, how India NDC, it is separate entity than the what I talked about DCC IOR. So DCC IOR is for the Indian Ocean region-wide collaborative center. But when it comes to India NDC, India will have national level, whatever activities are to be done. So that would be in the field of chemicals, when it comes to pollution, for example, or it will be coordinating with the fisheries institutes. So national level, whatever activities are there, these national decade committees will take care. So wherever required, India NDC will work with the DCC IOR. Similarly, DCC IOR will work with the NDCs from Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Australia, South Africa, any country that you can think about, from the IOR region. So the basin-wide or geographical-wide, the DCCs or thematic, what should I say, thematic or geographic DCC, they will work within their theme or geography. But when it comes to national level activities, whether it is about the beach cleanups or it is about the preparing the blue economy policy, or to create, a national implementation plan for the ocean decade, all the national level activities will be done by the NDCs. And this is the what I just explained in detail. So each of these also will help in the resource mobilization. Resource could be money, resource could be intellect, resource could be kind of networking that we bring in and then synergize the efforts and so on. So decade advisory boards have their own roles and responsibilities and powers, and DCU has their own, it is separate, and DCCs and NDCs have their own roles and responsibilities. So basically what I spoke about, but in the different words, but then the idea to show this is that everyone have their own role cut out to play in the ocean decade. All right. Now coming to NDC component. So presently, as copyright UNESCO 2022, it shows in the bottom, the UNESCO report, latest one, it says that how many countries have already formed their NDCs. And you can see that not all the countries all over the globe. So yeah, in general, North America and Europe have been, kind of preemptive, up to some extent in South America as well. But then South America or Africa or Asia, Southeast Asia, there are opportunities to be still, taken up these kind of ocean decade, national ocean decade coordination committees to be formed. And this is how the DCCs also will help. So for example, in Indian Ocean region, there are some NDCs already formed. And then some country will say, okay, yeah, we also want to do that. How to do that? So DCC will provide, say DCC IOR in this example, will provide kind of a framework and platform to say that you can visit how like virtually or in person, that how India, Madagascar, Indonesia, Oman or Iran have like formed their own what should I say NDCs. And if the countries are from the East Asia or Southeast Asia, they would be put in touch with Republic of Korea or Japan to facilitate the process and so on. So there will be like cultural angle, there will be regional angle, there will be motivation to coordinate and collaborate with the neighbors and so on. So these NDCs also will have like kind of interactions with each other through such platforms like DCC. So this is the like present status of how many NDCs have been already formed. And just what I was talking in previous slide, here you can see that like what already DCOs are already in place. So for example, IOD, I spoke about. Then ocean observations, that GOOS system is also the global ocean observation system, GOOS, it is there. And IOC Westpac, which is the subcommission of IOC for the Western Pacific. Similar subcommissions are already there for IOC Africa and IOC Caribbean. So this is also being planned that those also will be, like put as a decade coordination offices. And DCCs you can see here. So there are DCCs you can think about, like for example, Ocean Climate Nexus, it is a thematic DCC. And then when it comes to coastal resilience, that is also thematic DCC. Ocean Predict, I talked about, it is on the top, and so on. So you can see that Northeast Pacific, it is the regional one. Indian Ocean, which is at INCOIS, that is also a regional one, and so on. So, and this is not like a like a limited list, because as we talked about, this is kind of self-evolving system. And then as requirements will arise and as the motivation will spread and willingness will be conveyed, these like new DCCs and DCOs would come up. And then decade implementation partners, where we talked about national international organizations in that slide. So here are some of the examples who could be the decade implementation partners. So you can understand that universities are there and other frameworks are there. They all can be like identified as a decade implementation partners or DIPs. And then national decade committees we already talked about. So here all the names cannot be fit, but in general, what is being done on that front. And there are actually, like regular meetings will be there. For example, in the second point under NDC, it is mentioned that for the best practice NDC manual, it is being developed. And we are also actually attending all these meetings. So, you create kind of like a SOP for the, what should I say, how do we, let me put it in a proper way. How do we create a kind of manual so that any country who wants to create, say, what should I say, any country who wants to create an NDC, what manual they can follow. So this is the like kind of manual that is coming up. It will make the things easier, bringing out the best examples and the practices, what could be done, what should not be done, and how you navigate your way from your country not having any NDC to have your own NDC. So this is about that. And yeah, I think somebody wanted to use the whiteboard thing, and I don't know how to rub it off, but if hosts can do that, I appreciate that. Otherwise, it's fine. On that side, not much of the slide content is there, so it's okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't know how this. I'm trying to limit to host only now.
That's all right anyways. So yeah, other than that, I mean, we can just erase that. It's not much of the nuisance so far. Okay, coming back to the content. So ultimately we talked about the frameworks. Now, what Ocean Decade actually it's going to, do like as activity. So basically we come back to this tagline that ocean that we want. So for getting to that point, like that ocean that we want, there will be some challenges, right? So there will be some challenges that we have to identify. What are the challenges that is actually hindering us to get the ocean that we want? For example, everybody wants that blue, pristine ocean, but then marine pollution would be like one of the challenges, right? And so on. Everybody wants sustainable fisheries, but then overfishing or the lack of regulations, or not even lack of regulations, but if the regulations are in place, the lack of implementing structures would be the limitation. Sometimes ocean observations would be the limitation. We want to give better forecasts, but then observations are a limit, having a limitation. So those are called challenges. Then something it is called decade objectives. So ultimately we say ocean that I want, but we need to also break it up to some objectives, right? That, okay, this is the criteria when it is fulfilled, those objectives, then we can say that this is the ocean that we want. So to like tick all the right boxes, first of all we have to create those boxes. Then only at the end of the ocean decade we can say that okay, we have met the ocean decade objectives. And to meet these challenges, or to meet to this to handle these challenges, or to meet to these objectives, we need to act. So that is where actually it is coming that what are the decade actions. So the decade actions are coming under the different categories that we will elaborate in coming slides. But then ultimately this is on the three layers that the ocean decade actually runs. So one is called ocean decade challenges, another is ocean decade objectives, and third is the ocean decade actions. So coming slides would actually touch on all these things. Let us start with the first one. All right, so here you can see that the first of all on the left hand side, let us begin that the ocean that we have. So for example, we may have like less observations or knowledge gaps. We have the pollution, we have the the resource exploitation that is not going in much ideal way. So on the left hand side, that is what we have. On the right hand side, if we go, what ocean decade aspires is that ocean that we want, right? So for that, we have given these kind of decade outcomes. So we want a clean ocean. I'm just jumping from a very extreme left to extreme right. So we want a clean ocean, a healthy and resilient ocean, which is also productive because we need to feed people. And it's also predictable. It is not like, behaving in a haphazard way. So we need better prediction for the say adverse sea state or any upcoming catastrophe. So the ocean should be predictable, even for the achieving clean ocean. For example, you need better prediction of if any oil spill is there, how to negate that. You for that also again you need better prediction or predictive capabilities, so that you can achieve a clean ocean. For a productive ocean, you need to understand that up to what extent we should be exploiting the resources, not only fisheries but others also, right? For the drugs from the sea and so on. So ultimately, that also for that you need better prediction. Now to do all these things, like I mean, you want like observations, you want people to be going to the ocean and doing the research. You want ocean-based economy, so the cargo will be handled. So for that, the like a safe ocean, so that you can provide, like when you have predictability, you provide the kind of advanced alerts to the people, so that you can run this ocean economy, or you can run this whole ocean value chain in a most sophisticated and the effective manner. So safe ocean will be integral part of that. How that happens? If it is an accessible ocean, so ocean, if it is like the data or the knowledge, if it is in the hands of few, then it would be difficult because the challenges that we are talking about, and I will come to that central part in a few moments. So the kind of challenges that we face, it requires a lot of intellectual resource. It requires a lot of synergy, because not a single person or country or say industry or any framework has all the resources to meet that single-handedly. So the ocean data and knowledge and know-how, it should be accessible to everyone. And to do all that, you need to prepare like a whole new generation that is sensitized for the ocean, that has the opportunity to make careers in the ocean in a sustainable way, so that we actually create employment, we create like a kind of sensitization, we create the kind of momentum that brings the policymakers also to that. So the Ocean Decade should be like an inspiring thing. So the ocean should be at the core of everything that we do. So this is the like ocean that we want. So on left hand, that ocean that we have right now, we have a lot of things that we desire, but it's not there. So that is the ocean that we have in the red. On the right hand side, decade outcomes are the ocean that we want. And in between somewhere, there are like some objectives, actions, and challenges that we talked about in the previous slide. So for that, ultimately, because without science, it's not possible, right? So overarching thing is that the science that we need. So basically, these all challenges or objectives or the actions are that should be science centric. And I'm not going to read each of these, but you can see that under actions, there are like some of the different words are there. And I will also come in a moment about what are the programs, projects, activities, and contribution. Objectives are the self explanatory. I'm not going to read those 1, 2, 3. And then there are challenges. So there are basically 10 challenges, and you can read each of these also. And those are all interconnected. I mean, it is not like those challenges are compartmentalized or so on. It is like, it is kind of intervening challenges. But if you want to segregate into some topics, so that you can say the pollution is one of the things, and then biodiversity is being affected to that. But to protect and restore ecosystems and biodiversity is not always about the pollution. It could be sometimes about the natural catastrophe. It would be something about the anthropogenic activities and so on. So all these things will be like having overlaps to each other. But still, if you want to define that somebody like an alien or the god comes to you and then say that, okay, what are the challenges that you face in, having the ocean that you want in compared to the ocean that you have right now. So as an outsider, if you want to explain to that entity, you would want to segregate or define what challenges that you face. And these are these 10 challenges, and it covers everything. It has its own importance, and those are intertwined to each other. So that is the core of the kind of framework. And that is what Ocean Decade aspires to achieve, from reaching from ocean that we have to the ocean that we want. And as I said, the previously existing frameworks, like for example, Sustainable Development Goals, which is kind of one of the most popular thing, it is there, right? But then there are other frameworks also. Biodiversity Convention is there, then Sendai framework is there, then Paris Accords are there. So for different things, for example, Sendai framework, it is for the disaster risk reduction, and then Paris Accord is for the climate and so on. So ultimately, like there are other frameworks which has ocean somewhere in that. So it is not like the Ocean Decade would, run the engine solo on its own, but it also has a very deep thought process that has gone into that how it would augment to those frameworks as well. So this is the one of the example, because as I said, Sustainable Development Goals or the 2030 agenda for the SDGs, it is already there. And we usually say that SDG 14, which is life, below water, that is there. But under that also, you can see that there are n number of what should I say, sub points are there. So all of them are in one or the other way. It is being addressed with the help of OceanDecade. And similarly, continuing with the objectives of the ocean that we want, for example, clean ocean, when we achieve that, it actually contributes to the not only SDG 14, but other SDGs also. So for example, when you say clean ocean, then ultimately it will sustain a healthy ocean economy, and that would contribute to the SDG 1. And when you have the in the ocean economy, it is not only about the shipping or oil and gas exploration and so on, but it is also about the feeding the people. Then you also address about the hunger and so on. So I'm not going to read each of these because I understand that we don't have a lot of time, but you can just to give you the idea that this all feeds to the different SDGs. Again, the same chart, because it was too long vertically, I just split it into two. So I just want to show this, and you can see FCCC and so on. So ultimately, it all feeds to each other. That is the idea to like a point of showing this slide. And as I promised, like there are different levels of the things. So programs are the larger things, and projects are the smaller scale things, and so on. So what it can actually be done, direct support to the decade, it is more about the kind of contributions. And then you can, there are different ways with which you can support to the OceanDecade. So the governments and the intergovernmental organizations and so on, they can actually support to the OceanDecade in a different ways. And every 6 months, the DCU releases this call for decade action, or CFDA it is called. And for example, this is the latest one that is shown. So the programs are there, and then projects are endorsed to the already existing programs or the new programs and so on. And every call for decade would be dedicated for the challenges. For example, this CFDA 4 that was that closed in 2022, it actually focused on challenges 6 and 8. So basically, other than those challenges, if any challenge somebody wants to address, first of all you have to submit the EOI, and then if it is considered to be worthy, then you can submit the full proposal. If you are already addressing to those challenges earmarked for that CFDA, you can submit the full proposal directly. So this is the distinction between distinction between program, project, and contribution. And just some snapshots from the UN reports. I mean, basically the OceanDecade reports. So you can see that there is a momentum that is picking up, and this was the just for CFDA 4th. And you can see the snapshot in terms of engagement, and you can compare that in compared to 2021. 2022 was more engaged as the pandemic-related restrictions eased, and so on. So just some of the infographics again from the OceanDecade reports, which are already in public. So just to show you that how it is progressing, and as I promised, this has very rigorous review process. So there are I mean, this is the kind of calendar. You can see that annual progress reports will be there. So I have taken the screenshots from the previous slides I was showing. I have taken from this something that is in the center. It is called annual progress reports. I have taken from that. There are 3 intermediate state of the decade reports that also it is planned. Midterm review at the middle of the OceanDecade and so on. So this is the kind of review mechanism and how to put the actions in place. It is there. And since networking is one of the important thing, I wanted to highlight one thing that, for example, in the Indian Ocean region, we had this early career network, because early careers are the integral part of that. And OceanDecade has its own program that is called ECOPS program. that is called Early Career Ocean Professional. And as the name suggests, it is not only about researchers, but ocean professionals. Somebody is creating the beautiful, merchandise to promote the ocean-based economy or the save marine life. So you are the ocean professional, even though you are not researcher, and so on. So ECOPS is the kind of like one of the framework that is put into place under the OceanDecade, and this is the example where like representatives of the like NF-POGO, you can see Lillian here, and then ECOPS, Eugenia is here. So everybody like actually participates and then try to see that where their efforts are being synergized. And such meetings are just not about the meet and greet, but it also comes up with the new proposal that, for example, CFDA 4 that I talked about, we have put one proposal that is due review, and probably in a month or two that proposal outcome also, endorsement outcome also will come. So with that, we will be like once it is endorsed, and I'm hopeful it does, then we will be able to take up this kind of capacity development and so on in a more rigorous manner. So this is the last slide, but we can keep it on the screen and we can continue the discussion. So any QR code that you want to scan, or you want to reach to the OceanDecade handles, or like early career handles and so on, you can do everything from here. So we'll just keep this on the screen and I'll be happy to take the question. I am aware that we have kind of overrun the time, but I hope that the time that we spent so far, you would have found, useful. Yeah, that's from my side so far.
Thank you, Nimit, for your wonderful and very informative presentation. So now we have time to take only few questions. So if you have any questions, just raise your hand and ask to Nimit, or you can also write in our chat box. So yeah, we have okay, one questions from Gibson. Thank you so much for the talk, sir. I am a marine science graduate. Can I possibly undertake an internship program under a POGO or INCOIS? Kindly give a response.
Of course, I mean, it's like there are a number of ways to actually engage, and this is not related to OceanDecade as such, but I will leave like more to Lillian. But I just wanted to say that today itself I have come across one notification which actually gives the opportunity to go to Hobart, Australia with the POGO funding, and then participate to their nutrient intercomparison exercise. So it would be like all the expenses to reach Australia at Hobart, and then take up the cruise, and then post-cruise analysis and everything. That is all being funded by POGO. Similarly, INCOIS also, we have the International Training Center for Operational Oceanography. We call it ITCO Ocean, and it is one of the only 3 UNESCO accredited Category 2 center all over the world. So we actually announce a lot of different, what should I say, trainings, and you can just visit INCOIS website, which is already given here at the bottom, and then you can go to ITCO Ocean, and you can see that what are the upcoming programs. So it would be thematic, but then you would find something useful for you eventually. So I hope that answers the question.
Thank you, Nimit.
Sorry, let me just complement what Nimit was saying. So his question was an internship program under POGO or INCOIS. So just to clarify, POGO doesn't give internship positions. We provide training support for early careers from developing countries. There are several types of training programs we offer. One of them is the shipboard training program. So for early career scientists from developing countries to receive training on board research cruises. And this one that Nimit was mentioning was launched today, a call. So it's for people who has prior experience in nutrient analysis. But we also have the open call, which is this one that Sudesh put the link on the chat. And this application, it works kind of like a database. So you can apply there. You're going to need, please read carefully. All the instructions are there. You're going to need a recommendation letter, a CV, and to fill in an application form stating basically what kind of training you need. And the link I put just below Sudesh's link, the POGO Ocean / capacity development. So this one, you can get information on all training modalities from POGO. Thanks.
Thank you. Nimit, I have a question to you. It's regarding the National Decade Committee. So how this committee is formed and what are the activities? Nimit, you're muted. Can you please unmute?
I don't know, somehow I was muted. So yeah, the committees are formed, like it's something that it should come from within. So it's not like a DCU actually, imposes on anyone, or even DCCs impose on anyone. But if the National Decade committees, that country has the interest, what happens is that usually universities or like in case of India, we have the Ministry of Earth Sciences. So we have taken that initiative. But I understand that not all the countries have Ministry of Earth Sciences, but somebody would have the Ministry of Agriculture and Climate and so on. So the OceanDecade framework, it is aware about this kind of diversity in the approach. So not all the countries would have the same types of framework or the ministries who might lead. So country-wise, that would vary, and especially for the landlocked countries. So ultimately, that for each country, the customized solution will be different. Somewhere the university would take a kind of initiative, somewhere some foundation would take a kind of initiative, somewhere the governmental, like any ministry would take the initiative. So depending on the country's priority, which is the leading agency, I should say in general, like agency is the word or entity, that would actually take the initiative. And then it does not mean that they take the initiative, they would run that solely. They would bring all relevant stakeholders in the country, on board. So it could be Ministry of Forest and Climate Change, or Ministry of Fisheries, and so on. So they will take the initiative to try to integrate all the national stakeholders of the country. And they would say that, okay, we want to propose this NDC. And usually, since it is a national, initiative, so there won't be like a kind of second opinions or competitions or so on, because that is the idea about that. So once that integration is there, they can approach to the DCU, and then they would register as a NDC.
Thank you, Nimit. And we have one more question now, chat box from Samuel Huda. Thank you, sir, for this informative speech. One question came to my mind. You are saying about the decade challenges in my country, Bangladesh. Ocean is mostly used by the coastal vulnerable people who actually are not concerned about the sustainable use and all. How could we engage them to these challenges?
Certainly, I mean, there are many ways, but I would give like my favorite approach, because it's my favorite. But yeah, that could be one of the approaches. But the thing is that you want to sensitize them. You make them feel like a steward of the ocean. So if the stewardship comes, you continue engage them with the constant ocean information and advisory services. Then, for example, at some point of time, when the Met departments used to just give, say, I'm just talking about the Indian context, and being a neighboring country, you would probably also relate that as long as the Met department used to just give the advisory of the monsoon to the farmers, only farmers used to be concerned, and then that agri bulletins is not like kind of something that everybody is interested. But nowadays, if you see on the smartphone, everybody wants to have the weather app because they will take the decision based on the information whether I should make a trip to the mountains or I should be going, like somewhere to the islands or day-to-day things also. And hourly forecasts are actually, and I myself am using that getting accurate, that you can plan the laundry also, right? Just on the lighter note. So this is the kind of like information when you give in people's hand, you don't have to tell them that, okay, be interested in the weather, but they themselves will get like, interested in that particular thing. So ocean science or the sustainability need not to be a boring thing. You make them aware about what is happening in the ocean on day-to-day scale with this kind of operational services, and they themselves start getting, have a look on that. Okay, something is happening there, why it is happening there. That would get like, more traction in the mainstream media. And that is how you start rolling this thing, in the desirable way. So that would be one of the approaches. And obviously like community level engagement and so on. We can talk a lot about that. In fact, most probably, and not most probably, almost it is sure that I'll be there next month. So if you are participating in this POGO program next month in Bangladesh, we can talk about this almost endlessly.
Thank you, Nimit. I think we have one more question from Lika.
Please.
Thank you. So it's two questions, okay? But quick ones. So first, do you have an idea how many GCCs are there? And if like you said, they're geographically based, right? They are in charge of a specific region. So I was wondering, if I'm an early career and I want to get involved with decade activities, what would be the best organization within the decade to approach? Would it be my NDC or the DCC or the ECOPS? What do you suggest?
Yeah, it's a very good question and probably relevant to almost all the participants. And the straightest way would be that if your country has the NDC, then you may want to be part of the NDC. NDC does not only mean that like the high level policymakers or the scientists, but NDCs are also encouraged to have ECOPS within them. And if the not all the ECOPS all over the country can be part of the committee, I understand, and everybody understands that. But then that would help you to get in touch with your national coordinator or ECOP coordinator from as a part of your country's NDC. And I understand that all countries may not have NDC so far, but that does not mean that you cannot actually be part of ECOPS program. So for example, I mentioned about the IIOE2 Early Career Science Network. That is the one early career network. UN Decade also has its own ECOPS. Then, for example, IIOE2 ECSN. It is again geographic kind of early career network. But then there are other early career networks. For example, NF-POGO alumni network. So if you are part of that network, it is global and it is multidisciplinary. So you can also connect through that. And none of these early career networks are working like I shown in the last two slides. None of them are working alone. So if that is the idea, to create this kind of literally network. So one can identify self as a part of the multiple networks, and one can still identify that, okay, this is the one network where I will be contributing in this capacity and so on. So vice versa. So you can always be part of the multiple networks, and you can still connect with the ECOPS also. So if for example you are not an NF-POGO alumni so far, or your country does not have NDC, that box also it is unchecked for you. You are, for example, I gave the example of IIOE2 ECSN, but you are not in the Indian Ocean region, you are somewhere. So none of these are applicable to you. ECOPS, they all have their own national coordinators and the regional node and so on. So that network also, it is existing, and they also collaborate with us to expand this network and vice versa. So I don't actually see that any country, any early career is there in any of the countries. They will not find at least one such network, to get integrated into the OceanDecade. I hope that explains in detail.
Thank you, Nimit. So I think we are out of
There's one
time.
more question from Samuel.
Yeah, so you can just make use of all the emails or the QR code on this particular slide. That's why I kept it on the screen. So you can connect to the ECOPS through the UNDecade handles that I have shown. If you want to connect to ECSN, that email is also there. You just drop them the email. You start following their handles, and then put them the DMs, or you just connect them in your tweet or the post. And then you can say that I want to be part of this network. It is as simple as that. I don't think that any of the early career networks have any of the registration or joining fees or charges, because it's about the early careers. Everybody knows about the limitation of the resources, and there is nothing to hold you back of joining any of these networks. So help yourself, take a screenshot of this particular slide on your phone or the laptop, and afterwards make use of these kind of handles or email IDs or QR codes. Make use of that to reach out to any of them, and then you are being brought into the something that we talked about, like OceanDecade.
Okay, thank you, Nimit. So I thank you again for accepting our invitation and for your wonderful talk. And I also thank you all for joining us for this webinar. And we will close our webinar here today. And we hope to see you all again. Yeah, Nimit.
Now, just wanted to tell that if you could not take for any reason the screenshot of this thing, as it is told earlier that this whole thing will be put on YouTube. So you just go to the last slide at that time, and you can always make use of this information on this slide. So just wanted to tell that. Yeah, please, sorry to interrupt.
No
Please
problem. Yeah. And we hope to see you all again in our next webinar series. So until then, thank you very much and bye.